About 2 years ago, I switched from a Marantz AV7706 processor to an Anthem AVM70 8K. Now at the time, I did that because there was a ton of hype around Anthem products. A lot of guys were saying, man, Anthem ARC and Arc Genesis has much better processing than Odyssey. And at the time, it was just had Odyssey XT32 in the Marantz. Well, after living with the Anthem AVM70 for the past 2 years, I can honestly say it was a significant upgrade. So if I love the Anthem so much, why did I just purchase the Marantz AV30? Well, there's mainly two reasons. The Anthem over the past 2 years, the HDMI switching isn't super fast. It usually takes me anywhere between 8, sometimes 10 seconds for the audio and video to sync up when I switch between, say, my Kaleidescape to Apple TV 4K. And then every once in a while when I make the switch, it has handshake issues and I just get a black screen. Sometimes I have to power it down and power it back up to get it to resync. But overall, the Anthem AVM70 8K has been a fantastic processor. But since then, Marantz has come out with the AV30, the AV20, and the AV10. And all of those have the option to add direct live with bass control as well as direct art. Now, over the past 8 years, I've owned 4 different Marantz products and they've all been rock solid. I had the SR8012 receiver, the SR8015, and then I switched over to separates, going with the AV7705 and then the AV7706. And because of the great experience that I got with those, I'm now wondering, can I get the faster HDMI switching as well as an even better performance now that we've got direct live? And so that's what this series is all about. So here we have the Marantz AV30. So this is an 11.4 channel processor. That's all I need in this room. I'm running 7 bed layer speakers. So I've got 3 speakers up front, 2 side surrounds and 2 rear surrounds, 4 overhead height speakers for my Atmos, and then I have 2 subwoofers behind my 150-inch acoustically transparent screen. So I didn't feel that I needed to spend the extra money on the AV20 or the AV10 for those additional channels. So inside the accessories box, we've got the manual, we've got some information on HEOS, we've got an AM antenna, which I've never used. We've got 2 antennas for the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi that will attach to the rear of the unit, 2 batteries, the remote control, and then down below we've got what I really think is pretty slick of Marantz as well as Denon. They include these labels for your speaker cables. Here's probably my least favorite accessory. This is what I like to refer to as the rocket ship. So when you're calibrating with the included Odyssey microphone here, you can see it gets placed right on top of this paper rocket ship. It's not a really good solution. I would highly recommend you picking up an inexpensive tripod on Amazon. So for now, we'll just lay this off to the side. Inside this box, we have the Odyssey calibration microphone, a 2-prong IEC power cable, and then of course we've got the unit itself. Now a lot of times I get asked the question, what's the difference between a AVR, an AV receiver, and a dedicated processor? So a dedicated processor like the AV30, the AV20, and the AV10 does not have internal amplification. And so you're going to need to connect this to an external amplifier for each one of your speakers. Now I love the styling of the AV series. The Cinema series, which is their AVR version of this, also has this nice finish right here on the sides. And then we'll see in a little bit, there's an LED light back here that illuminates. So we'll go ahead and remove these to reveal this door right here. So this hides all of the front panel controls. Now typically I never have to use these. I always use the remote, but if you wanted to use these manually, you've got access to Pure Direct, MDAX, status, dimmer, zone 2 on and off, zone 2 source, zone 3 on and off, zone 3 source. Down here's where you'll connect the Odyssey microphone. You've got a USB port on the front, as well as buttons for info, back, option, setup, and then your 4 directional keypad and your enter. Over here we have your main power button, input selector, the porthole, which has some really limited display options, volume knob, and then your headphone jack over to the far right. Now let's go ahead and spin this around and I'll show you what connections we have available on the rear. So up at the top you can see we've got 7 HDMI inputs and 3 HDMI outputs, all of which are 8K compatible. Now each one of these HDMI inputs are assignable, so you can name these inside the AVR, which I'll show you how to do in a future video. If you have some legacy components, right here you can see we have 2 digital coax connections. These are inputs, 2 optical or fiber optic inputs, and then way over here we have old school RCA, so this would be your composite inputs, and here we have 1 set of component video input. Now when possible, I always recommend using HDMI. It's going to give you the highest quality, highest bandwidth, and highest resolution, both on audio and video. Here's where we'll connect an Ethernet cable to the network. So in my system, I like to hardwire it. Always recommend that over Wi-Fi, but if you don't have the ability to hardwire from your internet connection, then you can also use those included Wi-Fi antennas and connect wirelessly. If you got a phono player, you can connect that right here, as well as the ground for that. Here's an additional USB, so you can use that to power a device. Right here we have 5 analog inputs. That could be used for something like a media player or a CD player. If you have zone 2 or zone 3, I typically have never had to use for a second zone. That could be like a set of patio speakers, pool speakers, something of that nature. And then right here you can see we have unbalanced pre-outs. If your amplifiers only have unbalanced RCA inputs, this is what you're going to need to connect to each one of your speakers. We've got the front left and right, center channels, surround left and right, surround back left and right, height 1 left and right, and height 2 left and right, as well as 4 independent subwoofer outputs. Now if your amplifier has balanced XLR, I would highly recommend using the XLR connections down here for each one of your channels. That's how I'll be connecting the Marantz AV30 to my 2 speaker power amplifiers. Over here you can see we've got 4 independent subwoofer outputs. Now typically your subwoofer will be active, so it has an amplifier built in. So all we're doing is sending that signal to each one of the subwoofers, and then we can use Direct Live with bass control to calibrate each one of those subwoofers. In my setup, I only have 2 subwoofers, so I'll only be using subwoofer 1 and subwoofer 2 output. Now, if you're going to be connecting a Marantz processor or an AVR to, say, a TV, I'd recommend using the ARC eARC HDMI connection, as long as your TV supports ARC or eARC. What that's going to allow you to do is send the audio from your TV into the processor and then out from the processor to your speakers. So that's useful when your TV has internal streaming apps like Hulu, Disney Plus, Netflix, and so forth. So in my theater room, I have a projector. It's a JVC NZ800. It does not have any built-in apps, so I will not need to enable ARC or eARC inside the processor, but I'll still end up using that HDMI output to go to my projector. On most modern AVRs as well as processors, you'll have trigger outputs. Now this doesn't say trigger out, it says DC out, but more than likely this is going to be my trigger outs. So this will allow me to connect up to 3 amplifiers so that when this unit turns on, it turns on the amplifier. When I turn this off, it's going to turn off those amplifiers. To the right of that, we've got an IR extender if you need to use that. Amp control, more than likely that is for the Marantz amplifiers, and so that may be just specific for them. And then over here we have even some additional remote control as well as RS-232C. These typically are used in higher end control units like Crestron and Control 4. And over here, of course, we have our power input for the power cable. So the only thing we need to do right now is just attach these Bluetooth and Wi-Fi antennas by just screwing those on. These also bend, so you can point those straight up in the air. So now the real fun begins. Over the next series of videos, I'm going to be walking you step by step through me setting this up, my calibration settings, how to connect it. We'll talk about input sources and how to customize that within the Marantz infrastructure. I want to take you through every step of my journey getting this set up in my room. I also want to dive into direct live as well as learn direct art and share with you my experience there. And ultimately through this, I want to answer the question, can the AV30 perform as good, if not better, than the Anthem AVM70 8K that's currently been in my system now for about 2 years? I don't have the answer to that, but I want to share with you my journey and share with you what I find through this process. Now, full transparency, I'm an authorized dealer for Marantz as well as Denon, but I'm going to continue to give you my honest opinion. If this is better, I'm going to share it with you. If the Anthem outperforms this, I'm going to let you know that as well. I still think it's an amazing processor, but there are some things that I'm hoping that this will improve on the Anthem. But I think there's huge potential with direct live and bass control as well as direct art. So I'm super pumped to dive into that, to check it out here in my theater room and give you my honest thoughts. But will the AV30 take a permanent residence here in my theater room? That's what we're going to find out together. So I hope you'll come along for the ride, enjoy the journey with me. Hope you guys have an incredible week. God bless, and I'll catch you in the next video.